Yeah, good evening, guys. Welcome back. Today is session 3 on the Docker, and today is our last session on the Docker. Okay, so far in the previous classes, we understood what is a Docker. Docker is a containerization software which is used to simplify our application execution. We discussed about why Docker. Application will be developed by using multiple technologies, right? And those softwares should be installed in the system in order to run our application. In the real time, application execution will happen in multiple environments like dev, SIT, UAT, pilot, and production. When we are having multiple environments, deploying the application in all the environments will be difficult. We will get some dependencies problem. To avoid that dependencies problem, we are going for Docker. And we discussed about what is containerization. What is the meaning of containerization? Packaging our application code plus application dependencies as one unit for the execution is called containerization. Then after we have seen Docker setup in Linux machine. Okay, we have taken a Linux machine in the AWS cloud and we installed Docker in that machine and we are able to work with the Docker. After Docker setup, we discussed about Docker architecture. What is the meaning of Docker architecture, guys? Docker file will be available. Using that Docker file, we are going to create Docker image. Using the Docker image, we are going to create the Docker container. So we discussed about what is Docker file also. Docker file contains instructions to build a Docker image for our application. Then we discussed about Docker file keywords, which are very important for developers. Docker file keywords. What are the keywords available in the Docker file? From keyword available, maintainer keyword, copy keyword, run keyword, CMD, expose, entry point, work dir. Like that, there are several keywords available. By using those keywords, we are able to write the Docker file and we are able to work with the Docker images. Working with the Docker images. What is the Docker image? A package which contains code plus libraries plus dependencies is called as a Docker image. Once the Docker image is available, we are able to store the Docker image in the Docker Hub also. What is a Docker Hub? What is a Docker Hub? It is a Docker registry where we can store our Docker images. Once the Docker image is available, then we can work with the Docker containers. Once the images are available, then we can work with Docker containers. What is the meaning? What is the meaning of a container? Container is a virtual box. Container is a virtual machine in which our application is going to execute. For every application in the real time, one or more containers will be available. Once if we have one image, for that image we can create multiple containers also. Then we discussed about Java with Docker, Java web application with Docker. When you have Java web application, war file we need to copy to the Tomcat. Spring Boot with Docker. Spring Boot application with Docker. Spring Boot application will be executed as a jar file. Inside the Docker file, we need to write the instruction to run the jar file. Python with Docker. We are able to execute, one Python application also by using Docker software. Are you clear? This is what we discussed in the last 4.5 hours. That means 2 days, 4.5 hours we spent. What is Docker? Why Docker? What is containerization? How to set up Docker in the Linux? Docker architecture, Docker file, Docker keywords, Docker file keywords, working with images, working with the Docker Hub, working with the containers, running Java web application with the Docker, running Spring Boot web application with Docker, running Python Flask application by using Docker. And today we are going to learn another concept related to Docker, which is called Docker Compose. So let's discuss what is Docker Compose and why we need to go for Docker Compose. Fine. Guys, when we are dealing with one application deployment by using Docker, when we are dealing with our application deployment by using Docker, if you have single application, then you can create one Docker file for that application. You can create one Docker file, then you can create one Docker image, then you can create one Docker container for this application. This is easy. Already we worked on that part. If our application is available, to run that application by using Docker, the concept is simple. For that application, Docker file will be created, Docker image will be created, Docker container will be created, and we can run our application. But in the real time, one application will not be available. In the real time, microservices will be available. In the real time, multiple microservices are available. This is hotels application, hotels API, and this is flights API and cabs API, trains API is available. Like this, there are 4 microservices are available. For every microservice, I'm using a concept called DB per service concept. DB per service concept I'm using. That means every microservice is having its own database also. Every microservice is having its own database. So basically, in the real time, applications will be available with a microservices architecture. If you are having monolithic application, one project will be available, one Docker file will be available, one Docker image will be available, one container we can create. But in the real time, application will be developed by using microservices architecture. One application can contain multiple microservices. Now here I'm having UI application. So UI project is a separate, developed by using Angular. Backend projects are developed by using Spring Boot REST APIs. And every backend API is having its own database. Now, for this hotels API, one Docker container should be created. For its database, one Docker container should be created. For flights API, one Docker container. For flights database, one Docker container. Similarly, for trains API, 2 containers are required. For cabs API, 2 containers are required. So that means our application will execute with multiple containers. Our application will execute with multiple containers. If you go for monolithic architecture, then application will have single image, single container we can create and we can access our application. But in the reality, microservices architecture will be available. Now you see in the JRTP, we are doing a project. How many services are there? 6 to 7 microservices are available. Every microservice is a separate project. Every microservice is a separate REST API. Separate Docker image will be available for every application. When these many microservices are available, managing all these microservices as a Docker containers is difficult because our application is not single container application. Our application is multi-container based application. I need to create multiple containers. I need to stop multiple containers. I need to create multiple databases. So managing multiple containers independently is very difficult. That's why we are going to use one component in the Docker, which is called Docker Compose. Why we are going for this Docker Compose? It is used to manage multi-container based applications. It is used to manage multi-container based applications. Okay, I can create all the 10 containers in the single shot. Suppose what is the command to create a Docker container, guys? What is the command to create a Docker container? Can you tell me the command to create a container? Docker run -d -p port mapping. Port mapping we are going to do, and we are going to specify image name. Okay, so this is for one container. This is for one container. Suppose this container name I'm giving as hotels container. This is a hotels container. Container name I am giving as hotels. Now, similarly, I am having flights also. Then what I need to do? 8081 host mapping different, right? Flights container I will create. Then similarly, I want to go for 808. Containers can use the same port number. On the host machine, port number should be different. Yesterday, last topic, I explained this. Multiple containers can use same port number because every container is running in a separate machine. But all those containers are mapping to the host port. Host port number should be different. This is for not a hostels, hotels. So this is hotels API, flights API, and this is trains API, and this is cabs API, cabs API. So like this, I need to create 10 containers, guys. I need to create 10 containers. That means 10 commands I have to execute to create 10 containers. After 1 hour, I found there is a bug in our code. I want to stop all the 10 containers. Again, we need to go for each and every container and we need to stop them. Managing one container is easy. Managing 10 containers is difficult. So that's why we need one software which will support for creating multiple containers at a time, stop multiple containers at a time. That's where we are going to use a tool called Docker Compose. So tell me, what is the purpose of Docker Compose? Docker Compose is used to manage multi-container based applications. It is used to manage multi-container based application. Sir, how it is going to manage multiple containers? Now, we are going to create Docker images. Now, this is my Docker Hub account. In this Docker Hub account, my application is having several Docker images. So there are 10 images available. Using 10 images, I want to create 10 containers at a time. With a single command, I should be able to create 10 containers. That's where Docker Compose comes into picture. By using this, I'm going to create one file which is called Docker Compose file. What is the file, guys? Docker Compose YML file I am going to create. So once I create the Docker Compose YML, in this YML, I'm going to specify what containers we have to create at a time. How many containers you want to create at a time? What images it has to use to create all the containers? We are going to specify in the Docker Compose YML. Once Docker Compose YML is available, we are going to use a command called Docker Compose up command. When I use a command called Docker Compose up command, with a single command, 100 containers also can be created. So that is the power of Docker Compose. Docker will be available and Docker Compose will be available. Docker we will use to create the image. Once the image is created, you can create the container manually. If you have one container, you can do that. But if you have multiple containers, it is difficult. I have 50 containers in my application. Will you execute Docker run 50 times? No. I want to create those 50 containers in the single shot. So that's why I'm going to use Docker Compose YML. Once Docker Compose YML available, I will execute Docker Compose up command. It is used to create the containers. Now today, I want to stop my application. To stop my application, I will use a command called Docker Compose down command. When I use Docker Compose down command, all the containers which are created by using Docker Compose YML will be deleted. Compose up means create the containers. Compose down means delete the containers. Are you able to follow this? Tell me, what is Docker Compose? Huh. Docker Compose is used to manage Docker containers. Docker Compose is used to manage Docker containers. So creating multiple containers, managing multiple containers is difficult. That's why we are going to use Docker Compose concept to manage these containers. Yeah. So if someone asks, what is a Docker? Docker is a containerization software. Then what is a Docker Compose? It is used to manage multiple containers at a time. Multi-container based applications. When we are working with microservices based application, we will have multiple services. We will have multiple services. Every service will have its own Docker image. Every service will have its own Docker image. So to create containers for our microservices based application, we are going to use this Docker Compose concept. Are you clear with my point? What is the problem with only Docker? Everything you need to do manually. Lot of time it is going to take. What is the advantage with the Compose? Multiple containers can be managed easily. With a single command, you can create 10 containers also. With a single command, you can delete 10 containers also. That is the benefit we are getting with the Docker Compose. Okay. And here, when you install the Docker, by default, Docker Compose will not be available. We have to install Docker Compose separately. We have to install Docker Compose separately. Okay. Before that, what I'm going to do, the example what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take one Docker container to run MySQL database server. I want a MySQL database for my application. I'm going to use MySQL database server. I will run this inside container. I want to run database as a container. I don't want to run the database. I don't want to set up the database manually. I want to run the database by using Docker container. For this database, there is a official image available in the Docker Hub, guys. So inside Docker Hub, there is a official image for the MySQL database. By using this MySQL Docker image, I will create MySQL database container. Then I'm going to create one more Docker container for my Spring Boot application. I will create one more container for my Spring Boot application. Okay. App container will be available. DB container will be available. Now I want to communicate from Spring Boot application to MySQL database. I want to run one Spring Boot application which requires MySQL database. Database will run in the Docker container. Boot application will run in the Docker container. So these two containers are independent containers. These are two different containers. For this Spring Boot application, our own image will be available. We will create our own Docker image, which is app image. App image will be available. What about MySQL? For MySQL, do I need to create the image or ready-made image will be available? For MySQL is a public database, right? It is open source. Anybody can access. You can run MySQL database by using Docker image. So we will pull the Docker image for the MySQL and we will run MySQL database. Got it? Then application is available. Spring Boot application is available. For this boot application, one Docker file we will create. With that Docker file, one Docker image we will create. Now I'm going to run application inside one container, database inside another container. Now my application should communicate with the database container. Container to container communication. Every container is a separate machine. Now, how one container can communicate with the another container? If one container should communicate with the another container, these two containers should run on the same network. That concept is called Docker network. That concept is called Docker network. If two containers are running on the same Docker network, then one container can communicate with the another container. So what is the demo that we are going to see? I will run one Spring Boot application which will communicate with the MySQL database. That MySQL database also will be available in the Docker container. Application container, database container will be available. So to create a database container and application container, can I say multi-container based application? Is it single container based application or it is a multi-container based application? Multi-container based application. To manage this multi-container based application, I will use Docker Compose. Are you able to follow me? If I don't use the Docker Compose, then what is the problem? First, I need to run the MySQL database container. Then only I need to run my application container. Two containers I need to run separately. If I want to stop them, I need to stop both containers separately. Today, 2. That's okay. Tomorrow, 10 application containers, 10 database container, 10 APIs available. For every API, separate database is available. 10 APIs, 10 databases. Total 20 containers I need to create for my project. Easy? Is it easy? No. So when you have microservices based application, Docker Compose is very, very useful. Tell me the definition. What is the purpose of going for Docker Compose? What is the purpose of going for Docker Compose? Docker Compose is used to manage multi-container based application. Database will run in one container, application will run in another container. My application container should communicate with the database container. So this one I will manage by using Docker Compose. And observe, earlier when we are developing Spring Boot applications, we are writing database properties, localhost : MySQL 3306. Now that localhost will work, localhost will not work now, will not work. Why? Where our application is going to run? Inside the Docker container. In that container, database is available? No. Where is the database now? Another Docker container. So two machines. In one machine, application will run. In another machine, database will run. Application running in one machine should communicate with the database running in the another machine. So you need to configure data source properties accordingly. You need to configure your data source properties accordingly. Now see our application. If you go to our project that we are using, any application, let me open this. JPA application will contain application.properties file or application.yml file will be available. In that file, we are going to specify database properties. So our application in the classroom, when we are learning Spring Boot or JRTP, application running in the same system, database server also running in the same system. By using localhost, we are able to connect. But in the real time, application will run in one container, database will run in the another container. Now observe. Go to our project, JPA application. Open JPA application. Inside the JPA, what I am doing now? What I am doing now? I'm configuring the database properties, username, password, URL. So where is the database available? In my local. This code I can run in the local. It will connect to my local database. But now, where my database will be available? Where my database will be available? Inside the same container or a different container. Application running in one container, database will run in the another container. Application container should communicate with the database container. If two containers want to communicate, they should be running on the same network. That network concept is called Docker networking. It is called Docker network concept. Are you able to follow this? So I want to create a MySQL database server. For that, we will use one Docker image. Official public Docker image available to set up MySQL database. Application image we will create and we will run that application container, database containers by using Docker Compose. So which image it should use to create the database? What should be the username of the database? What should be the password of the database? Everything we are going to configure in the Docker Compose YML. Okay, now let me show you the Docker Compose YML. Let me show you Docker Compose YML. Go to our GitHub repository. in my GitHub repository, if you type Docker Compose, okay, yes, there is a project available. What is this project? Spring Boot MySQL Docker Compose app. Whatever the project you need, everything is available in the Git repository. You just need to check it and you need to understand how to use that code in the project. Go to Docker Compose. Once I go to my Docker Compose, can you see what is this one? If I open the Docker file, anything new? Just JDK, port number, copy the jar file from target location to system. Then entry point, run that jar file. Then, what is this one, guys? Docker Compose YML. What will be there in the Compose YML? What will be there in the Compose YML? Compose YML contains the information to create the containers. It will contain the information to create the containers. Okay. Now, let me open this containers YML. Just read it, guys. Or else let me copy this. This is our Docker Compose YML config. Docker file will be available, which is used to create the Docker image. Compose is required only to create the container based on your Docker image. Now, you see first one, inside this Compose YML version number, Compose YML version we are going to specify. Then we are going to specify services. Then we are going to specify networks. Services available, networks also available. Services represents what containers you want to create. How many containers you want to create? We are going to specify them as part of services section. Okay. So here under the services, what is this? Application service available and MySQL DB service is available. Let's talk about MySQL DB service now. Forget about the application. Look at this one. This is name of the container, MySQL DB container. What is the image I want to use? MySQL 5.7. MySQL server image I want to download. Network. Spring Boot DB network should be created for this image. Environment. So whenever MySQL database is getting installed in the Docker container, I am setting what should be the password for the database, what should be the database name. Username will be root only by default. When you install MySQL database, default username will be root. Password I am setting and database name also I am setting. Why we are, if I don't set this username and data password and database, what will happen? Some random password it is going to select. Application don't know what is that random password. That's why when the database is running in the container, I am telling by using which Docker image that database should be started. For that database, what username, what password, what is the database name? Those are called as environment properties. So this is my image name. Where this image available? Public Docker image. It is available in the Docker Hub. When I run this Compose, it will download this Docker image. It will create a Docker container by using this network. Creating the Docker container means MySQL database will be installed. When it is installing MySQL database, I'm setting username. It is by default root only. Password I am setting as root. Database name I am setting as SBMS. Volume means storage, where the database data should be stored. Container should have some storage. That storage will be represented by using volumes concept. So this is the configuration in the Compose YML, which is used to create MySQL database inside the Docker container, which is going to install MySQL database inside the Docker container. What is the name of the container? MySQL DB. Then above, can you see this one now? This container is related to application. This is the Docker image for the application. My application will run on the port number 8080. Container port is 8080. Host port is 8080. Run on the network. The DB network and my application network is same. Why I am using same network for both containers? They should communicate. So if the network is same for both containers, they can contact with each other. Then here I'm specifying depends on MySQL DB. What is the meaning of depends on MySQL DB? When the compose is creating the containers from the YML, hey, first don't create my application. You first create the database because my application is dependent on the database. When you run the boot application, what will happen? Connections should be created. Database should be ready. Then only you can start your boot application. That's why in the compose YML, we are specifying my application is depends on the database container. So first database container will be created, then my application container will be created. Compose YML. How application will connect with the database? Already we know what is username and we know password. But where the database is available? Different container. What is the name of the container? MySQL DB. Instead of localhost, now in the database properties, instead of localhost, I'm going to give MySQL DB. What is that MySQL DB? Container name. Okay. If you give localhost, what is the meaning of that? Container, wherever our application is available, in the same system, database also should be available. But here, database available on the same system, database available on the different system, different container, different container. You specify name of the container. Then application can connect with the database container. What is the username? Root. What is the database password? We already specified in the compose YML. At the time of database installation, password I'm setting as root. Database name I'm setting as SBMS. So this is Docker Compose YML. So services section will be available. Services section will represent what containers you have to create. I want to create application container and database container. For application container, one Docker image required, we will create that image. For database container, MySQL image, public image available, Docker Compose will download that image and will run the MySQL database in the container. This application container and the database container both are running on the same network because they can connect. In the project YML file, database URL we need to configure in such a way it will find the database in the database container. Instead of localhost, I'm going to specify my container name. Username will be default root, password we are setting, database we are setting. The URL is going to change. Are you guys clear with this one? Good. So can we do the practical now? Yeah. Let me go to AWS account. I will take a different machine today and I will set up Docker with Docker Compose. Okay. Login. Yeah. Go to EC2. Now, I want to create one machine. I want to create one machine to set up the Docker Compose. Already I have given one document for the Docker Compose setup also under the DevOps documents repository. You see here, there is a file available. What is that? Docker Compose setup file is available. Click on this Docker Compose setup. What are these commands available? If you run these commands, then Docker Compose will be installed in our system. So whatever the Linux machine you are using, in that Linux machine, Docker should be installed, plus Docker Compose also should be installed. Then we can start using Docker Compose to create multiple containers. We can manage multiple containers by using Docker Compose concept. Are you guys able to follow me? Yeah. Today, I'm going to take Ubuntu Linux machine. In the last session, what machine I have taken? Amazon Linux machine I have taken. Today, I'm going to take Ubuntu Linux machine. Just to give you different feel, commands are going to be different. I mean to say, installation commands will be different. Docker commands are same in any Linux machine. Even if you use Windows also, in the Windows, if you install the Docker, the commands are going to be same. Good. Let us take launch instance. I'm going to create a Docker Ubuntu server, Ubuntu Docker, Ubuntu server, Ubuntu Linux I'm taking here. You can take Amazon Linux or you can take Ubuntu Linux also. T2 Micro, which is free tier eligible. Key pair already we created. DevOps 18, sorry, not that. What is the key pair you created? Docker Workshop key pair. Launch it. Yeah, machine is getting created. Once it is created, connect with this machine, guys. For this one, username will be Ubuntu. If you go for Amazon Linux, username will be EC2 user. If you go for Ubuntu Linux, username will be Ubuntu. Refresh. Yeah, machine is started. If you want to know what is the username of the machine, click on connect option. It will show you what is the public IP, what is the username. For yesterday machine, what was the username? EC2-user, because it is Amazon Linux machine. Today machine Ubuntu. So what is the username? The username is Ubuntu only. Okay. Now connect with this machine. Go to Mobile Extreme. Let me go to Mobile Extreme. Yes. Open this one. Session. SSH. Copy public IP. Remote host. What is the username? Ubuntu. Settings. Private key. Docker workshop. Okay. PEM file. Click on OK. Accept it. Now I'm able to connect with my Linux machine, which is using Ubuntu operating system. Now in this, Docker is not available. Docker Compose also not available. I want to install Docker. Okay, good. Let's go to DevOps documents. Here, first find out Docker setup. Find out Docker setup document. Here, if you want to go with Amazon Linux, these commands to install the Docker. If you want to go with Ubuntu Linux, these commands to install the Docker. What is this one? Ubuntu. Copy these commands and execute. Sir, what are these commands? If you know Linux, then you will understand. These are the Linux commands to install the required softwares. Docker is getting installed. It is taking time. Yes, completed. R. Session is restarted, guys. Clear the console. Verify Docker-V. Docker is available. Then verify Docker images. Any Docker images available? The Docker commands are same. The only thing is installation process will be different. Commands are going to be different for installation. Once the Docker is installed, whether it is a Windows machine or Linux machine, commands are same. Docker images, nothing available. Docker PS, any container is available. Container is also not available. I want to install Docker Compose also. First check it. Docker Compose -v. What it is saying? What it is saying? Docker Compose is not found. That means Docker Compose software not available. I want to install Docker Compose. There is a document available. Go back. DevOps documents. Docker Compose setup document. Third document. Second one is for Docker setup. Third one is for Docker Compose setup. Click on this one. Just to copy this command. This script we are going to copy and execute. Right click, paste, execute. So with this, it is going to install Docker Compose in our system. In the Linux machine, Docker Compose installed. Clear with this one? Yeah, let us check it. Docker Compose version. Docker Compose is available. Are you able to follow this? Now, no images available, no containers available. Now I want to create a image. I want to create a image for my application. My application code is available in the GitHub. Spring Boot Docker Compose application available. In this application, go to the resources, see the application.properties file, src, main, resources, YML. Inside the YML, localhost is available or MySQL DB is available. MySQL DB. What is the name? Why that name is there? What that name is referring to? What? Container name. That is a container name. Database is running in the separate container. Application will run in the separate container. Application should communicate with the database. That's why DB container name we are configuring in the database URL, not localhost. When to go for localhost? If the database is there in the same machine where application is running, in the same machine, if the database is available, we will give localhost. But today, the scenario is not that. Container is different. Database container, app container. App container should connect with database container for operation. Container name we are specifying in the YML file. Are you only this is the change, guys? Next, Compose project is there. Here Docker file is available. In this Docker file, if you see, we can add copy. What is the meaning of a copy? To copy the file from one location to another location. Then what is entry point? What is entry point, guys? It is going to run the jar file which is available. Click on now, open JDK 11, expose. What is expose? What is the meaning of expose? Container running on which port number? Okay, that's it. My Docker file is ready. My Docker Compose file is also ready. What is this Docker Compose? Services. How many services available? Application service available, DB service available. Application running on the network, DB also running on the same network. If I run this Docker Compose, how many containers will be created and which container will be created first? Which container will be created first? Application or DB? DB. Why DB? Depends on. As per my configuration, I'm telling that my app container is dependent on the data in the real time also. Before deploying the application, database should be ready. First database should be created, then application will be started, then application can connect with the database. In the configuration also, same thing I have done. App container is dependent on the database container. Are you able to follow this? Yeah. Let's go and Dockerize this Spring Boot application with MySQL database. MySQL database, are we installing or Docker Compose will install? What about MySQL database? Am I going to install the MySQL database? My Docker Compose will install the MySQL database. Docker Compose will install the MySQL database. So two containers will be created, application container and database container. Are you able to follow this? Anybody having any confusion? Any questions before going to the practicals? What is Docker Compose? What is the purpose of Docker Compose? Docker Compose is used to manage multi-container based application. What is the meaning of multi-container based application? What is the meaning of multi-container based application? One application will have multiple containers. Executing every container independently is difficult to manage. So I want to manage all of them by using single command. Then go for Docker Compose. If you want to work with Docker Compose, extra file is required. Docker Compose.yml. What will be there in the Docker Compose YML? Services, networks will be available. Services represents how many containers, what containers you want to create, what images you want to use to create them. Network represents communication. Volume represents storage. Okay. Shall we start? Yeah. Take this code. Huh. User defined. You can give any name for that. Here I'm giving the name na. With this network will be created. So the whatever the name I am configuring below under the network section, you can give ABC also. Same name you need to specify. First network will be created, then containers will be created using that network. Go to that Git repository. You know the process. Now go to this machine. In this machine, verify it is hanged, duplicate tab. Okay. I don't know why mobile extra hanging every time. ls-l. Anything available? No. I want to clone my Git repository. How to clone the Git repository? Git clone repository URL. Spring Boot application, which will use MySQL database. But where is the database? Container. Okay. Cloning is successful. Very good. Cloning is done. ls-l. Go inside this project. cd space project name. I'm inside the project directory. Then ls-l. What is there inside the project? src available, docker file available, docker compose file available, pom.xml file is available. src. What is src there? Our project source code is available. What is pom.xml? Libraries information. Which libraries are required? What is the Docker file? Dependencies information. What is the Docker compose file? Containers information. SRC contains the source code of the project. Pom.xml contains Maven libraries. Docker file contains dependencies. Compose file contains containers information. Tomorrow, Jenkins file will come. After that, Kubernetes file will come. Jenkins file for the CI/CD. Kubernetes for the orchestration. And remember, if you are using Kubernetes, Docker Compose not required. Docker Compose is also orchestration kind of thing only, right? What I am doing with the Docker Compose? I'm creating the containers. I'm managing the containers. But in the real time, which one will be used to manage? Kubernetes. So if you are using Kubernetes, Compose is not required. Are you able to follow this? Good. So now I want to create a Docker image. To create the Docker image, application should be packaged by using Maven. How to package by using Maven? MV. Currently, check it. Target folder available or not available? No, that means the jar is not available. How the jar file will be created? Using Maven. Tell me that. MVN clean package failed. Maven not install. What it is saying? Install Maven. How to install? They are giving the see the beauty of the Linux. When I'm executing Maven, it is saying Maven is not available, but you can install with this command. They are giving the suggestion also. You just copy this command and execute it. Maven is going to install. Confirmation? Yes. Maven requires Java. Maven is developed by using Java. So what it will do now? What this Linux command will do? Java will be installed, then Maven will be installed. Linux is a beautiful operating system. Now you see, when I execute Maven, what it is saying, guys? JDK it is installing. Java it is installing. Why it is installing Java? Maven is developed by using Java. Java is required to run the Maven. Yes, finally, Maven installation completed. ls-l, no target folder. MVN, clean package. Maven package. Have you seen one Venkatesh movie? Adavari Matlak Ardhala Verle. He will do night out. He will complete the project in the night out. This kind of screen will come. We will think that is really doing a project. No. Git will come by default in the Ubuntu. You no need to install. In the Amazon Linux, you need to install Git manually. In the Ubuntu, that is a default software. No need to install. Okay, completed. Build got success. What is the meaning of build got success? Target is available. Can you see jar is available or not? ls-l space target. Spring Boot MySQL jar file is created. Once the jar is available, can we build a Docker image now? Can we build a Docker image now? What is the command to build a Docker image? Who will use our image? Who will use our image?
Compose, sir. Docker compose.
Docker compose. Who is creating the container, man? Am I going to create the container or Docker compose will create the container? Whatever
compose,
the
sir,
image
compose, sir.
name you are using, same name should be configured in the compose YML. Okay. So go to our Git repository. In the compose YML, what name I am referring? Application service. For application, what is the image name I am giving? Spring-boot-MySQL-app. You create your Docker image with the same name so that compose YML will use that image name to create your application container. If you change your image name, compose YML also should be updated. Okay, I will use this same name. Okay, good. Go here. Tell me the command. Docker images. Any images available? No,
No, sir, no.
images available. Tell me the command.
Docker build.
Docker build
Build.
-t
Hyphen
image
image
name space dot. What is the
Dot.
image name? Spring-boot-MySQL-app. Why I am using the same name? Compose YML having that name. Okay.
Name,
If I
sir.
give any other name here, compose YML also should be updated. Okay. What is the dot? Current
Docker file, sir.
current directory. Current directory. Okay. Can we create the image? Yes.
Yes.
Perfect, guys. Docker image creation completed successfully. Clear this? Can we verify? Images. Yeah, there is a Docker image available. If I create container, what will happen? Can I create container now?
Yes, sir, we can.
Now we can create.
No.
Doc
Why I cannot create container now? You know how to create the container? How to create the container? Docker run
run
image
command, sir.
name.
Run command.
When I try to create the container, what my application will do? It will try to run the jar file. Spring Boot application will start. What that Spring Boot application will do? Try to connect with the database at the time of startup. Database
Yes, sir,
available
yeah.
or not available?
Not
Container
available, sir.
creation will fail. Are you able to follow this? So I have a Spring Boot application in which I am communicating with the database. When the Spring Boot will get the create the connection pool at the time of application startup. So it will try to connect with the database. Is the database ready or not ready? Not ready. If the
Not
database
ready.
is not ready, application can start or application cannot start?
Cannot start, sir. Cannot start.
Cannot start. You understand the problem? Yes. Only my application image is ready. By using this image, I cannot create the content. Can we try? Can we
Yes, sir,
try?
yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Tell
sir.
me the command.
Yes.
Docker run.
Docker
Run.
don't
hyphen
use
D.
-d. Leave it. Hyphen. If I
D.
don't use -d, what will happen? You can see the logs of the
Direct logs, sir.
application. If I use -d, logs will not display. -p 8080:8080 image name. Okay,
Image name,
giving
sir.
my image name. Check it. Boot application trying to start.
Yes, sir.
Container created successfully or container failed to create?
Container failed, sir.
Container failed to create. See this one? Failure, exception. Unable to create required service. Why it is unable to create the required service? Unable to create request service. Application run, failed. Unable to create, unable to create. Scroll up, see the error. Driver not received any packets from the
Packet.
server. That means JDBC driver is trying to connect with the server to create the connection pool. The database server is not there. So in this system, database is not available. That's why it is failing. Okay, good. So one container is dependent on the another container. When one container is dependent on the another container, easily we can manage them by using Compose. Now I want to create the containers by using Docker Compose. To create containers by using Docker Compose YML is required. To create the Docker container by using Compose, Docker Compose YML is required. So in our project, already Docker Compose YML is available. What is there in the Docker Compose YML? Application container information, database container information. For application Docker image we have created. For database, public official image is available. My application container is dependent on the database container. First, a database container should be created, then application container should be created. My application container should communicate with the database container. If one container wants to communicate with the another container, they should be created on the same network. So in our Compose YML, network configuration available, volume configuration available, services configuration
Yes, confirm.
available. Services are nothing but containers. Application container, database container. Now, so once you have Docker Compose YML, to create the containers, command is very simple. What is the command?
Docker
What is the
Docker
command we
Compose
are
up,
going
sir.
to use?
Up, sir,
Come on, guys, respond.
up, sir, up.
Docker
Compose
Compose up command.
Up
What is the purpose of Docker Compose up command? It will read the Compose YML. It will create containers according to Compose YML. Run this. What is the first step it is doing? No.
MySQL, sir. MySQL. Creating a
No.
network.
Image creation. It is putting about
First it is
dependent
creating
network. Dependency
Network.
container.
network. Then what it is doing? Pulling
MySQL.
MySQL image from the Docker Hub. Then
Hub.
finally what it has done? Creating containers.
Containers.
Creating the containers. Application container is creating. Database container it is creating. First, why all these logs are printing? I have not used -d. Detached
-d,
mode
sir.
is not used here. That's why it is printing everything on the console. Now you see finally
Application apps.
Tomcat server started for boot application with port number 8080. These all are logs of our containers. This is where I have used a command called Docker Compose up command. First, what is the first step it is doing? Creating network. Then pulling MySQL. Creating MySQL container, database container. First database container created. Then next application container created. So with this our application deployment is completed. What is the port number? In the Compose YML we have specified container port number and host port number. What is the host port number? 8080. Let's enable that port number in the security group. Let us access our application. Are you clear? Yeah. Let's go there. Go to EC2, security groups. EC2, instance running. Select the machine we created. Security, security group. Go to inbound rules. What is the rule? What is the port number in the host machine? 8080. Anywhere IPv4, save the rule. Now, take the public IP of the machine. Take its public IP. Copy this. Go to browser. :8080. Our Spring Boot application is coming. Okay. we are able to access our Spring Boot
Spring Boot app.
application, which is running in the Docker container. Let us enter the details, Java and price. I'm giving here, click on submit. What happened? Data is displaying in the table.
Application.
From where the data is coming? From the database, the data
Database.
is coming. Let me enter another book, DevOps, author name and book price, 850, submit. Second record also inserting. This data is stored in the database, application fetching the data from the database and displaying here. So containers are two containers available. One is the app container, another one is DB container. Two containers I'm creating manually, or I'm using Docker Compose to create two containers.
Docker
Docker
Compose, yeah.
Compose I am using to create two containers. Is this clear for everyone? Any confusion? No.
Sir,
Sir,
if you
what is the
create,
proof? Wait, mister, wait. What is the proof to say that really my application storing the data in the database? Maybe you might have used a map in the code to store the data. Can you prove that really database is created in the container? Really the data is available in the database. That administration part also we can see. Okay, can we try that? Yes. That means we need to do the post-mortem for the container. We need to go inside the container and we need to see data is available or not. Container is a Linux machine. So already I connected to one Linux machine. In this Linux machine, Docker installed. Using Docker, I created two containers, app container and DB container. Able to follow this? Now, if you want to see really the data is available in the database, we need to go inside the container and we need to check it. That means we need to use some Linux commands to verify the data available in the database. Can I do that? Can I do some that administration part can we do on the container? Yes. But here my containers are running in the interactive mode or they are running in the detached mode? Interactive mode or detached mode? Interactive mode. What is the meaning of interactive mode? Logs are, when you do some operation, logs will be printed. If you do some operation, logs will be printed. Can I execute the next command here? Is my terminal available to execute the next command? Not available. So what I need to do? Run them in the detached mode. Control C. I'm stopping my containers. When I press Control C, what happened? Killing application container, killing database container. My containers are killed. Now you see Docker Compose PS. What happened? Containers available or containers deleted? Containers deleted. Stopped. Basically, the containers are stopped. I will use Docker Compose down. What is the meaning of compose down? Up means create the containers, down means remove the containers. Now, I want to run the containers in the detached mode. How to use the containers in the detached mode? How to run containers in the detached mode? First of all, verify Docker Compose PS. What is the meaning of PS? Containers are running. Any containers are running? No. Can I run them? What is the command? Up. What is -D? Detached mode. Yes. Now you see the commands. You see the messages we got from the Docker Compose. Read them. Read the messages we got from the Docker Compose. Creating network, creating DB container, creating application container. So we have recreated our containers. Go to our application. Yeah, 1 minute. Let me check the status of them. Docker Compose PS. What is the status of the containers? Database is running up, and this is app container up, DB container also up. Public IP colon 8080. Yeah, application is there. Any data available? Any data available? No. Can we go to database and can we see how the table is there in the database? Yes. Guys, this is little advanced concept. Don't worry if you are not able to understand. Just to prove you that database is running in the container. Docker Compose PS. So can you see that? Docker Compose PS command. Docker Compose PS command is available. So this is my application container name and this is my database container name. Now observe. Docker exec -it space my DB container name. 1 minute. It is in the 2 lines. Array. I want to get that single line. Compose container name I want basically. Yeah, this is the name of my database container. /bin/bash. Yes. Now from this host to Linux machine, I entered into container Linux machine. Once I enter into container Linux machine, MySQL -h localhost -u root -p password. Okay, this is a command which is used to connect with the MySQL database. Why I am using localhost here? Where I am now, currently where I am now? Inside the container, DB container. Database is there in the same container, right? That's why I'm using localhost. MySQL -h means host, where the database available. -u means username. -p means password. Using this command, I am connecting to database server. Yes, I am connected to database server. You see, I am in the MySQL now. Currently, I am in the MySQL now. So here, let's go to MySQL, enter a command called show databases. What is the database name it is showing now? What is the database name I have given? SBMS is the database name I have given. Use SBMS. Database changed. Then execute show tables. What is the table available? Book table is available. Select star from book table. Any record available in the book table? No record. Go to application. Enter book name, DevOps, Ashok, and price 100. Submit. One record is inserted. Go to database. Record is inserted in the database or not? Yes, my application inserting the record in the database. Where is the database? Inside the container. Let me insert one more record. Java. Who is that guy? James. 200. Yes, we are inserting second record. Now go to this database. Select star from book. Java record is also inserted. This is the proof to show my Spring Boot application containing with MySQL database that a database is running in the another Docker container. How I entered into database? By using some Docker exec command. That command is used to go inside the container. So I am in the host machine. From the host machine, I entered into container. Once I entered into container, I connected to the database and I connected to my table. I'm able to get my table data. Clear. I hope you got what is Docker Compose, how to work with Docker Compose. How to come out from the container now? Exit. So I came out from the database. Now I am in the container machine. I'm in the container machine. Come out from the container machine. Exit. Now I came to Ubuntu machine. Ubuntu is my host machine. In this host machine, I can execute Docker compose ps. So it is going to display the commands which are available. I mean the containers which are running, it is displaying now. Okay. How I have Dockerized our application. To work with Docker Compose, we need to create docker-compose.yml file. This is Spring Boot with MySQL Docker Compose YML. Spring Boot MySQL Docker Compose.yml. Spring Boot Docker Compose YML file is available. Starting point and ending point. Okay, how we are doing this one, guys? So first what we need to do, git clone, what is that? Repo URL. Then we need to sudo apt install maven. I'm cloning the git repository. I'm installing maven. Then go inside the project, cd space project directory. Once you entered into mvn clean package, then docker, once package is completed, docker build -t image name. What is the image name we are using? Can I change the image name here? Can I change the image name or I should not change? Why? Compose YML using that name. Okay, take that name. Build -t space image name space dot. Once it is done, you verify docker images. Then final command we are going to do docker compose up -d. Next command docker compose ps. What is the meaning of docker compose ps? Containers will be displayed. Then finally enable 8080 in security group. Access application in browser. So what is the URL to access our application? Public IP :host port /. That's it. So with this, you are going to access our Spring Boot application, which is communicating with the MySQL database. Docker Compose available. Docker Compose setup. How to do the Docker Compose setup? Git repo. Okay, this is used to set up Docker Compose in your system. And to work with Docker Compose, we need to create Compose YML. Spring Boot with MySQL Docker Compose YML. Code I am giving, that is my GitHub repository. Source code, Spring Boot project, which is using MySQL database. Let me give that Git repository as well. Spring Boot MySQL Docker Compose YML. Copy this one. Yeah. Then you go to the machine, install Docker Compose, clone the repository, install the Maven, do the package. Okay. Then build a Docker image. Use this image name only. Don't use any other name. See the images which you have created. Then compose up to create the containers. Compose ps to see the containers. Enable the port number. Access your application. Once your practice is completed, then what you can do? Docker compose down. What is the meaning of Docker compose down? It is used to delete Docker containers which are created by using that compose. Okay, so let me execute that. Compose down. Yeah, it is stopping the containers, then it is removing the container. So everything is deleted. Finally, what we are going to do? Docker system prune -a. Then it is going to delete the stopped containers. It is going to delete unused images also. Total around 580 GB MB used. All that data is clear. I got the free space in my machine now. So once your practice is completed, you do that process. After the final practice is completed, go to the EC2 instance state, either stop it or terminate it. When you stop it, you can restart. When you terminate, it will not be available for you. I hope you got it. What is Docker Compose? How we are going to work with Docker Compose. Perfect. Yeah. Docker workshop summary. Okay, so these are the topics that we covered as part of our Docker workshop. Now, as a developer, you can keep Docker in your resume. I know what is Docker, how to work with Docker. Good. This weekend, coming weekend, guys, there are 2 workshops available. Saturday evening around 5:30 or 6 o'clock, we will have a Jenkins workshop. Sunday morning, there is a workshop, Spring Boot integration with ChatGPT. ChatGPT APIs we can access directly by using our Spring Boot. Spring Boot with ChatGPT integration is available. It's not like searching Spring Boot code in the ChatGPT. Our Spring Boot application will communicate with the ChatGPT. So that integration we are going to discuss on this Sunday. Okay, so 2 workshops this weekend. One is a Jenkins workshop, Spring Boot with ChatGPT workshop. Got this? Fine. Thank you guys. With this, I'm stopping for today. We'll meet again in the next session tomorrow. For Spring Boot people, tomorrow morning, as usual, 7:30 a.m. class is available. And for JRTP people, tomorrow evening, 6 p.m. regular class is available. Both. So I think morning we will do online class for Spring Boot and JRTP offline is available. Okay, good guys. Online people, thank you for attending this workshop. Join in the WhatsApp group to get the class notes. Whatever the notes I have prepared, I will share these class notes in this WhatsApp group. Yeah, DevOps class is available regularly. Yeah. Join in this WhatsApp group. You will get the class notes and you will get the video also regarding this third session. Thank you.